morning, a BYU student was attacked by a shark while surfing near Goat
This is
Island.
how we usually hear about sharks. The pictures are awesome and the news disturbing.
There's a whole lot of them out there.
When you think about it, few words affect us like the word shark.
The shark hunters hooked a big one today.
Most of us do not even think about sharks until a problem occurs. Then reality and imagination collide, and they become something evil.
5 times and the thing still comes at you. That's a tough shark.
In some ways, that is understandable, since shark encounters sometimes do result in human injuries and even death. But are sharks the terror we make them out to be? Dr. John Randall of the Bishop Museum is an internationally respected ichthyologist. Having studied these animals for years, Randall has a healthy respect for them and manages to keep them in proper perspective.
Most of my contact with sharks have been very passive on their part. Indeed, when I'm trying to take photographs of them, I'd like them to be closer, and it hasn't happened. In a few occasions, I've had some close calls, and it usually involved my spearing fish for a specimen. Well, when I first saw sharks, there was a definite adrenaline rise and total fear. But after a while, when I realized that they seemed more afraid of me than I was of them, why, my whole attitude changed. So I began to look at them, as something where I felt rewarded just to be able to see them underwater.
Over 40 different species of sharks have been recorded in Hawaii, ranging from the little cookie cutter to the whale shark. Of these, about a dozen species are regularly seen in our waters. While they are fishes, sharks have some features that distinguish them from what we call the bony fishes. These differences also show how well-designed sharks are for their role in the ocean. Sharks have thick, fleshy fins compared to the very flexible fins of bony fishes. The broad fins help the shark glide through the water. Shark bodies are covered by dermal denticles, tooth-like structures embedded in the skin. These help to streamline the animal and also serve as a protective covering. The sharp edges can cause serious abrasions on contact with human skin. Shark teeth are also distinctive. Instead of being anchored in the jaw, the shark's teeth are anchored in the gums. As gum tissue grows, older teeth move forward and fall out, replaced by a never-ending supply of new teeth. Shark teeth can vary according to species and diet. The different shapes and arrangements help to increase feeding efficiency. For example, a mako shark's teeth are dagger-shaped to feed on soft-bodied fishes like tuna and mackerels. Sandbar sharks have narrow teeth on the lower jaw for grasping prey, while the upper teeth are wider and serrated to help saw through more heavily armored reef fishes. The tiger shark's teeth are almost identical in the upper and lower jaws. These distinctively shaped teeth are also serrated to help in sawing through hard substances like turtle shells and the hides of marine mammals. Shark skeletons are often referred to as cartilaginous. Cartilage is light and flexible, two characteristics that work well for the shark. Parts subjected to stress, like the jaws and backbone, are thickened and mineralized for added strength. Sharks get oxygen by passing seawater over 5 to 7 gills located in slits along each side of the head. Some sharks must force water past the gills by swimming constantly. Others have special muscles that allow them to pump enough water over their gills even when resting on the bottom. Sharks possess well-developed sensory systems. Some of them are unique to aquatic creatures and in some cases just to sharks. Sharks and bony fishes have lateral line systems, fluid-filled pores along the body that enable the animal to sense vibrations and movement in the environment. Electroreception is unique to sharks and their relatives. A network of fluid-filled sacs, centralized around the head and mouth, enables them to sense tiny electrical currents produced by other creatures. These highly sensitive ampullae of Lorenzini are believed useful in the shark's hunt for food. When searching for prey, sharks use their impressive array of senses to locate and home in on a meal. Hearing and smell likely guide the shark when the prey is at a distance. As the shark moves closer, vision and the lateral line come into play. Still closer, electroreception provides precise guidance. Finally, at the end of the search, touch and taste complete the sequence. The hammerhead shark displays these sensory adaptations remarkably well. The oddly shaped head looks clumsy, but it might help in the search for food. Nostrils positioned at the end of the lobes may assist in pinpointing sources of odors. The ampullae of Lorenzini, spread across a wide surface, may make it easier for the hammerhead to locate buried prey. The head functions to some degree like a metal detector. With all these systems at work, it is easy to see why sharks are such efficient hunters. Tiger sharks are some of the bigger animals in our waters, capable of lengths greater than 15 feet. They are known to venture close to shore, and as the sequence filmed on a northwestern Hawaiian island shows, they are proficient hunters. They frequently feed at or near the surface on a variety of items, large and small. Humans are not part of their normal food supply, but tigers have been implicated in more attacks on humans than any other species in Hawaii.
Well, it was about 6:45 in the morning. My friend Ryan and I paddled out to go surfing out at Goat Island, a place we go out all the time. And we went out, and I caught probably about 3 or 4 waves, and I was paddling back out, and I just felt this really strong clamping on my legs. It took me by total shock, and at a reflex, I just yanked my legs back up, and at the same time, I turned around and I saw the huge shark, and his mouth was up out of the water, and he was just thrashing back and forth, and I was just petrified and scared. At the time, I thought it was my time to die. At the time it happened, I wasn't really worried about my feet. I was just worried about the shark coming back after me. It wasn't actually until we were at the hospital that I got to have a really good look at him, and I was pretty surprised at the damage that was to my feet. My left foot was probably a incision, probably about 8 inches, and the other had 3 or 4 slashes. They were pretty deep. Got a couple minor tendons.
No one knows just why sharks sometimes attack people. Theories about why these incidents occur are still being studied. The little we do know about these animals indicates there are things we can do to minimize the chances of attack.
The key to ocean safety is to understand the environment and understand the local conditions. The best way to get that knowledge is to go to professional lifeguards, but if there are no professional lifeguards in the area, check with the locals who go to those beaches on a regular basis before you venture out. That'll save you from getting into situations where you may get injured or you may get hurt. Specifically to the shark issue, sharks are in the ocean, but they're not really the most major concern for us in Hawaii when it comes to water safety or ocean safety. However, we should be aware that sharks are there and that they can potentially pose a danger. The way you can minimize your risks as a surfer or swimmer or boogie boarder is to stay out of the waters around harbor entrances or near stream runoffs. They're bringing things down into the ocean that may attract sharks. You may also want to stay away from areas early in the morning and also late in the evening, and if the water's murky in particular. Stay with a group of people, and by following those simple rules, those will minimize your risk to having an encounter with a large shark. For people who dive or fish and are in the water themselves, one of the key things to consider is when you do spear fish that you don't want to have those fish close by to your body. If a large aggressive animal were to be in the area and attracted in by the blood, you would want to keep your catch at a distance from you. A lot of us that dive and spearfish, what we'll do is we'll put our catch bag off on our floater, and as we take our catch, we'll put it into the catch bag and let it hang down beneath the floater. The more you understand about the areas and the activities that you're participating in, the safer you're going to be. So you should know about sharks, and you should understand where they are and what their relationship is, but it is certainly not a problem of the proportions that some people have made it out to be.
When attacks on humans occur, there is usually a cry to do something. Often that means killing sharks. However, we need to consider the consequences of this kind of response.
Sharks play the same role in the sea as the large cats do in Africa, preying on antelopes and wildebeests and so on, keeping the populations of these herbivorous animals in check. If we look at any ecosystem, a community of plants and animals living together, nature has checks and balances. It's all there to keep things together in harmony. And sharks and these larger predators tend to prey upon the infirm and the sick and the injured and so on, the so-called cleansing effect of a predator. And it's this role that is a major guiding principle in evolution. Now, if you tamper with nature, if you take away some of these higher predators, things can get out of kilter very quickly.
As top predators, large sharks provide critical control of populations of smaller sharks that feed on yet smaller fish species. Removing too many of these larger sharks may have unexpected and undesirable results.
Well, it's hard to predict just what will happen when you tamper with an ecosystem. But if we eliminated all the large tiger sharks, we could expect, because we do know they feed heavily on smaller sharks, a proliferation of small sharks. So what would that mean? Well, maybe fewer ulua for fishermen to catch, for one possibility. But we don't want to find out. We just want to keep nature as much as we can.
Some of these effects on nearshore fish populations have already been demonstrated in places like South Africa and Florida. It has also been shown that since most sharks give birth to relatively few young which grow very slowly, it is fairly easy to knock their populations down for a long period of time. Clearly, we need more information in order to make well-informed decisions on the management of shark populations.
Well, I think most people will be surprised to learn that scientifically we know very little about the movements of large sharks around populated coastlines. We don't know if there are a population of sharks which move back and forth across that beach on a regular basis, or if the sharks that are there one day are completely in a different place the next day. So it's a blank canvas about what we know about the movement of large sharks. So to try and rectify that situation, we have a research program going which involves putting small transmitters on tiger sharks and then following their movements 24 hours a day for the next several days to establish just what they do and when they do it. And the way we do this is to put a sonic transmitter on the back of the fish. This is a transmitter, which this one is actually good for about 3 days, the batteries. Ones we'll use as the project progresses are good for up to several months. And in the end here, we have a pressure sensor, so that not only do we know where the shark is going sideways, but also how deep it is, whether it's near the surface or near the bottom or in the middle of the water column. So by harpooning one of these onto the back of the shark and following it around, we can determine its movement patterns and its depth of movement. Despite the fact that we know scientifically very little about the movements of tiger sharks, I think popular impressions are that they have a home range or a territory that they patrol day after day, maybe coming in shallower at night and moving out deeper in the daytime. That's a popular conception of what tiger sharks do. We're only at the very early stages of the experiment, but so far the responses have been very different than what we'd anticipated. The fish are showing a lot more offshore and long-distance movement, so already by doing some good scientific research, we're starting to see that our preconceptions about these animals were incorrect. Basically, we need some good scientific information upon which to make management decisions. And the only way to get that kind of information, to be able to judge whether or not it makes sense to fish in a given area, or how often you have to fish there, or what time of year you have to fish there, or if there's no sense in fishing there at all because the sharks are always moving, we can't make any of those decisions because at this point we have no data. And the whole point of the scientific research is to provide those data.
Often we look at sharks and see only danger. That is not necessarily the only view of these creatures. The cultural and spiritual significance of sharks to the Hawaiian people offers a very different perspective. An example is the role of some sharks as aumakua.
The Hawaiian look at all of nature as important, and they look at the signs of nature as messages coming from their families who have passed on. A particular characteristic of an animal that is unusual from its normal behavior are usually signs of a kupuna, or an ancestor who have gone away and have sought out an animal to show us, living, things that we need to know. These animals were venerated because they were family. And they became a domineering factor in the communication between those that have passed on and those that are still here. And a lot of times their roles was either to protect or to perpetuate, and that's really the aumakua attitude of our people. So for us, the aumakua is really the guardian saint between me and the Almighty Being. Certain Hawaiians have certain sharks, and I say certain sharks, not all sharks, that they choose as their aumakua, or that shark have chosen them as their aumakua. It works both ways. But when it comes down to the nitty-gritty as to, this is my aumakua, then that person has got to know the name of his or her aumakua, and the genealogy for that particular aumakua. You have to practice, you have to participate, you have to feed it constantly. Otherwise, that aumakua will no longer recognize you and it will go away.
This strong spiritual connection extends beyond humans and sharks to include all of nature. And that has been an important facet of Hawaiian culture for centuries.
All Hawaiians are sensitive to things that are natural. And the importance of the reef to the land, the importance of the hills to the reef, the full impact of environment. We cannot separate ourselves to the trees. We cannot separate ourselves from the waves, from the ocean, from the clouds and its cloud forms, from the mountains, the hills, the animals, from the limu to the pipipi, to the kupepe, to the mano. It's all part and parcel of the wholeness of who and what we are.
The Hawaiian people are admired for their remarkable understanding of their place in nature. For most of us, the realization that we do not control our environment but are simply partners in it has come only recently.
I think I'm extremely lucky and blessed to still be standing here. I use a lot more caution now, and I've kind of wised up about the ocean and realized that it's a huge territory and it's a domain that's not ours. And something, you need to respect the ocean when you go out. I think that going out on the ocean isn't really any person's right. It's more of a privilege, an opportunity we have, to go out and enjoy the ocean, what it has to offer. But right along with that comes the dangers of the ocean, just like anywhere else. On land you have dangers, the ocean you have dangers too.
The ocean is a tremendous source of enjoyment, but from the moment we enter it, we are visitors in a world that demands our respect. Its power is incredible, and it is the house of the shark. We still have much to learn about sharks and their role in the environment. The greater our understanding, the more we will appreciate these remarkable animals and be able to exist with them in their world.